The sun had just risen over the colony town of Lyra. The air was cool, carrying the faint smell of metal from the repair shops and the sweet scent of the gardens that dotted the streets. People walked quickly toward the market, trading goods and speaking in low voices. It was a normal morning for most of them, but for Miran it felt different. Miran was only 16, and though young, he often felt restless. He liked to explore, to notice the things others ignored. His parents worked long hours at the colony greenhouse, leaving him with free time to wander the busy streets. That morning he carried a small bag, hoping to buy fruit for the evening meal. As he passed through the market, he saw something unusual. Near the edge of the stalls, where shadows stretched long, an old alien woman stood. She was tall, thin, and bent slightly as if her body carried too many years. Her skin shimmered faintly in the sunlight, not bright but soft, like stone polished by rain. Her clothes were worn and torn in many places, stitched together with threads that looked old-fashioned. She looked around slowly, her eyes wide, as if she was lost. In her hand she held a wooden stick, more like a walking staff than a weapon. People passed her without stopping. Some turned their eyes away, while others whispered among themselves. Miran heard their words. "She is confused," one man said. "She does not belong here," a woman added. "Do not go near her," another voice warned. Miran frowned. He had seen many alien travelers come and go, but this was different. This woman was alone, without family or friends to guide her. She looked hungry, her lips dry, her movements slow. Miran felt something stir inside him, a quiet voice telling him not to turn away. He stepped closer. "Do you need help?" he asked softly. The old woman turned her head toward him. Her eyes were pale, almost silver, and they studied him carefully. She opened her mouth, speaking in broken human words. "Food, water," her voice cracked like dry wood. Miran nodded quickly. He opened his bag, pulling out a small flask of water and a piece of bread he had kept for later. He held them out with both hands, showing respect. The woman blinked, then reached forward slowly, taking the bread first. She chewed with difficulty, as though her teeth were weak, but she ate it gratefully. Then she sipped the water, each swallow easing her dry throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Her words were rough, but the feeling behind them was clear. People nearby stared at Miran as if he had done something foolish. A merchant shook his head and muttered, "Wasting food on her." A young boy laughed and said, "She will bring trouble." But Miran ignored them. "What is your name?" Miran asked gently. The old woman placed her hand on her chest. "Nara," she said. Miran repeated the name. "Nara. I am Miran. You look tired. Do you know where you want to go?" Nara shook her head. She touched the small pendant hanging from her neck. It was a piece of stone with strange glowing lines carved into it. She held it out, showing Miran, as if asking for help. Miran leaned closer. The lines were not random. They formed symbols he had never seen before, but they looked purposeful, as though they carried meaning. He had no idea what they said, yet he felt sure they were important. "Is this where you need to go?" he asked, pointing at the pendant. Nara nodded slowly. She tried to speak again. "Find, place, home." Her voice trembled. Miran felt a spark of curiosity. He wanted to know more. Why had no one else cared to ask her questions? Why had they all turned away? He looked at the crowd, then back at Nara. She was different, Yes, but she was also alone. He could not leave her. Come with me, Miran said. I will help you. Nara's eyes softened. She leaned on her staff and followed as he guided her away from the busy market. They walked through quieter streets, where the noise of trade faded and the air grew calm. Miran asked small questions, trying to understand her, but her words came slowly, broken by long pauses. She seemed to struggle with memory, sometimes stopping mid-sentence as if the thought had slipped away. Yet whenever she touched the pendant, her face grew firm, her eyes filled with focus. They reached a small park near the colony walls. It was a peaceful place where few people visited in the morning. Trees spread shade across the benches, and a fountain trickled gently in the center. Miran guided Nara to sit. She lowered herself slowly, breathing with effort. Miran sat across from her. Tell me about this, he said, pointing to the pendant again. Nara closed her eyes. Her hands held the stone tightly. She spoke in a whisper, the words uneven but filled with weight. Old, place, hidden, far. She opened her eyes and looked at Miran. Need, find. Miran thought carefully. He had seen many maps of the colony, drawn in school and displayed in shops. None had symbols like hers, but maybe if he studied the shapes on the pendant, he could find a clue. Do you remember where? He asked. Nara raised her staff and pointed beyond the colony walls, toward the distant hills. Her hand shook, but her eyes remained steady. Miran's heart quickened. The hills were far, beyond the safe zones where patrols guarded against wild creatures. Few people went there without reason. Still, something in Nara's gaze told him this was no ordinary search. You want to go out there? Miran asked. Nara nodded once. For a moment Miran hesitated. He was just a boy, and the outside lands were dangerous. Yet deep inside, he felt this was important. The woman had crossed who knows how many years and worlds, and everyone had ignored her. If he did nothing, her search would end here, forgotten. Miran leaned forward. I cannot take you now. But I will help you find the way. I promise. Nara's lips curved in the faintest smile. She reached out with her thin hand and touched his shoulder gently. Good, boy, she whispered. The sun rose higher, warming the park. Miran sat quietly with Nara, thinking about what he had just agreed to. A sense of adventure filled his chest, mixed with fear and excitement. He had no idea what lay beyond the hills, but he knew one thing clearly. He could not turn away. From that day, Miran's life would no longer be ordinary. Helping a lost old alien lady seemed simple, but deep within him he felt that this was only the beginning of something much larger. The next morning, the colony town of Lyra buzzed with its usual rhythm. Shops opened, vendors set up their stalls, and children hurried toward their learning halls. But for Miran, the day felt far from normal. He woke with thoughts of the old alien woman, Nara, still vivid in his mind. He had promised her help, and promises meant something to him. After a quick meal of porridge, he packed his bag with a flask of water, a small loaf of bread, and a notebook he often used for sketches. He stepped out into the bright streets and hurried toward the park where he had left Nara the day before. She was there, sitting on the same bench, her staff resting against her leg. The pendant around her neck caught the sunlight, its strange lines glowing faintly. She looked fragile, yet there was something strong in her eyes when she noticed Miran. You came, she said softly, her voice still rough but a little stronger than yesterday. I said I would, Miran replied. We will find the place you are looking for. Nara nodded slowly and tapped the pendant with her finger. She held it out toward Miran as if asking him to study it. He leaned close, carefully tracing the strange lines with his eyes. The symbols did not look like human writing, but they were not random either. Some lines curved like rivers, others pointed straight like roads. He pulled out his notebook and copied the shapes quickly, hoping to compare them later. This looks like a map, Miran said after a long pause. Not words. A map. Nara's lips moved, and she repeated the word as if tasting it. Map, yes. Miran thought about the maps he had seen in the colony school. There were detailed drawings of the settlement, the farmland, and the nearby hills. Beyond the hills lay unexplored regions, wild and dangerous. The thought of going there made his heart race, but his curiosity burned even stronger. Do you remember how far? He asked. Nara lifted her staff and pointed again toward the hills. She whispered, far, but near. Miran frowned. That answer was not clear, but he did not press her. He could see her struggle to speak. She seemed to carry heavy memories, like doors in her mind that would not open fully. Do you know this place? Miran asked again, showing her a rough sketch of the hills he remembered from his lessons. Her silver eyes scanned the drawing. She touched one part with her finger, a cluster of shapes near the outer edge. Here, close. Miran felt a spark of excitement. If she was right, then the pendant pointed towards something hidden in those hills. But what could it be? An old settlement? A treasure? Or maybe just a place where her people once lived? Whatever it was, Miran felt it mattered. They sat in silence for a while. The fountain behind them bubbled softly. A few people passed by, throwing curious looks at the strange pair. Some muttered under their breath, shaking their heads. Miran heard the words clearly. That alien is still here. The boy wastes time. She should be sent away. Miran tightened his jaw. He wanted to shout at them, but he stayed quiet. Instead, he looked back at Nara. She sat calmly, her face unreadable. Perhaps she had grown used to being ignored. Do not worry about them, Miran said. I will listen. Nara smiled faintly. Her hand trembled as she reached out and patted his arm. Good. Miran. Later that afternoon, Miran brought her to his small home at the edge of the colony. His parents were still working at the greenhouse, so the house was quiet. He guided her inside, offering her a seat and some warm tea. She accepted it with slow gratitude. Miran laid his notebook on the table. Show me again, he said, pointing at the copied symbols. Nara leaned close, her eyes narrowing as if pulling forgotten memories back to the surface. She moved her finger across the lines, pausing at one curve shaped like a half circle. She tapped it firmly. River. Miran's eyes widened. A river? Yes, that makes sense. This line runs like the river outside the colony. She nodded, then pointed at a cluster of dots near the river mark. Her voice shook, but she spoke with effort. Home, old place. Miran leaned back in his chair, heart racing. This was no ordinary wanderer. Nara was searching for something real, something that connected to her past. He began to wonder who she had been before ending up alone in the market. Why do you want to find it? He asked carefully. Nara's eyes turned distant, filled with sorrow. Last, memory. Must, not, lose. Her words made Miran feel heavy inside. She was not just searching for a building or a treasure. She was searching for her people, her history, maybe even her identity. Everyone else had turned away from her, but to Miran, she seemed like a living library waiting to be opened. That night, Miran spread maps across his bed. He compared his sketches to the colony charts, matching the river lines. Slowly, a pattern formed. The pendant's symbol seemed to point to a spot beyond the hills, near the bend of a river that was rarely visited. Few humans had gone there, and those who did spoke of ruins buried under earth and stone. Miran felt a shiver of excitement. Could that be what Nara was searching for? The next day, he returned to Nara with his findings. She listened carefully, her eyes shining with sudden life. She touched his drawings with both hands, whispering a word he could barely understand. Yes, yes. For the first time, Miran saw her look less tired. It was as if hope had entered her body, giving her strength. They began to plan. Miran knew he could not take her into the hills without preparing. He would need supplies, safe paths, and perhaps help from someone who knew the land. But he also knew that if he asked too many people, word would spread. Others might try to stop them or take whatever they found. So he kept the secret close, sharing it only with Nara. Every day after his chores, Miran met with her. They studied the pendant, practiced simple words to understand each other better, and marked the maps with signs. Slowly, he learned more about her. She was not just an old woman wandering aimlessly. She was Nara, a survivor of a people who once lived where humans now built their colony. She remembered little, but she remembered enough to know that something precious waited to be found. The colony still ignored her. People whispered when Miran walked with her through the streets, calling him foolish, but he did not care. He had learned something they had not. Sometimes the most important stories came from the ones everyone else chose not to hear. One evening, as the sky turned orange and shadows stretched across the town, Miran and Nara sat by the fountain again. The pendant glowed faintly in the fading light. Nara, Miran said softly. We will go soon. We will find your home. She looked at him with eyes that seemed both old and young at the same time. Her voice came out steady, filled with gratitude. Together. Miran nodded. He felt the weight of the word. Together. Not just a boy and an old alien woman, but two travelers bound by a promise. The hills waited in the distance, silent and mysterious. Somewhere out there, a secret was buried, and Miran knew they were the only ones willing to uncover it. The adventure had only just begun. The morning air outside the colony walls was sharp and cool. The sky stretched wide, painted in shades of pale blue, while the hills in the distance looked quiet and still. Miran stood near the gates with his bag strapped tightly across his shoulders. He carried food, water, and a lantern, along with his notebook and a folded map. Beside him, Nara leaned on her staff. Her movements were slow, but her silver eyes carried determination. She had covered her head with a simple cloth to shield her from the bright sun. The pendant hung from her neck, glowing faintly in the early light. The guards at the gate looked at them with suspicion. One guard frowned. Where are you going, boy? Exploring, Miran answered. He tried to sound casual. Just near the hills. The guard studied him, then glanced at Nara. His lips pressed into a thin line, but he finally waved them through. Do not go too far. The wildlands are not safe. Miran nodded quickly. He and Nara stepped past the gates, leaving the colony behind. As they walked, the ground changed from flat farmland into rougher terrain. Grass gave way to patches of stone and scattered bushes. Birds darted above them, their calls sharp in the stillness. Nara moved slowly, but she never complained. She held the staff firmly, her eyes fixed on the hills ahead. Miran checked the map often. The pendant's symbols had matched the bend of a river. That river flowed just beyond the hills. If they followed it, they might find the place Nara was searching for. By midday, they reached the foot of the hills. Rocks jutted out of the ground, and narrow paths wound upward. Miran offered his hand to Nara as she climbed. She accepted it with a faint smile, her grip surprisingly strong despite her frail frame. They rested under a wide tree at the halfway point. Miran shared bread and water with her. Nara ate quietly, her eyes always drifting toward the hills above. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. Close, very close. Miran felt a thrill of anticipation. They climbed higher until the land flattened into a small plateau. From there, the river shimmered below, winding like a silver thread through the valley. Nara's pendant glowed brighter when she lifted it toward the view. Miran gasped. It reacts here. Nara's lips moved. Yes, here. They followed a narrow path down toward the river. The sound of flowing water grew louder until they reached the bend marked on Miran's map. The ground was rough, covered in wild grass and stones. Nothing looked unusual at first. Miran walked slowly, searching the area. He brushed aside bushes and kicked loose rocks, but found nothing. Doubt began to creep into his mind. Perhaps they had been wrong. Perhaps the pendant was only a memory, not a guide. Then Nara tapped her staff firmly against the ground. The sound echoed strangely, hollow instead of solid. Miran froze. He knelt down, pressing his ear to the earth. There was an emptiness beneath. Nara, he whispered, excitement rushing back into his chest. Something is under here. Together they cleared the grass and loose soil. Soon they uncovered a slab of stone, carved with faint patterns. The pendant in Nara's hand glowed brighter than ever. She lowered it against the stone. The lines on both pendant and slab pulsed, as if recognizing each other. The stone shifted with a deep rumble. Dust rose as the ground trembled. Slowly, a hidden door opened downward, revealing a dark passage leading into the earth. Miran stared in awe. It is real. You were right. Nara's eyes glistened. She stepped forward carefully, leaning on her staff. Home, she whispered. They entered the passage together. The air inside was cool and heavy, untouched for many years. Their lantern light revealed smooth walls carved with the same strange symbols as the pendant. The path sloped downward, twisting deeper into the hill. Miran's heart pounded with every step. He felt as though he was walking into history itself. He could sense the importance of the place, not just for Nara but perhaps for all who lived on the planet now. Finally, the passage opened into a wide chamber. Miran raised the lantern high. The room was filled with machines, silent and covered in dust, their surfaces made of smooth metal unlike anything humans built. Strange crystal pillars stood in rows, glowing faintly as if they still held power. At the center of the chamber stood a great platform shaped like a circle. On its surface lay markings similar to those on the pendant. Miran's voice trembled. This is incredible. Nara walked forward slowly, her eyes shining with recognition. She touched one of the crystal pillars. At her touch, it lit up brighter, casting blue light across the chamber. One by one, other pillars awakened, filling the room with a soft glow. Miran's mouth fell open. It still works. Nara stepped onto the central platform. She lifted her pendant, holding it high. The markings on the floor answered with light, spreading outward like ripples in water. The machines around them hummed faintly, as if waking from a long sleep. Miran could hardly breathe. What is this place? Nara's voice was steady now, stronger than before. Old, home. My people, built this. Long ago. She closed her eyes, as if memories were returning piece by piece. We were many. We lived with the rivers, the hills. We built knowledge. But war came. Time passed. All lost. Miran listened, his chest heavy with the weight of her words. She was not just an old wanderer. She was the last witness of a civilization erased by history. But why did you come back? Miran asked gently. Nara opened her eyes. To remember. To keep alive. If no one remembers, then all is gone. Miran stepped closer. You are not alone now. I will remember with you. Her silver eyes softened, filled with gratitude. They explored the chamber further. Miran sketched the machines and symbols in his notebook. He touched one of the panels, and to his surprise, it flickered with light, displaying shapes that looked like stars. He gasped. It is a map of the sky. Nara nodded. Knowledge. Hidden here. Waiting. Miran realized the truth. This was more than ruins. It was a vault of wisdom, left behind by Nara's people. Technology, history, stories all preserved here. Humanity had believed themselves the first true settlers of this world, but now Miran knew the land carried far deeper roots. He felt both awe and responsibility. If the colony leaders discovered this, they might try to take it for themselves. They might strip it apart without care for its meaning. But to Nara, this was sacred. He turned to her. We must be careful. Others may not respect this place. Nara nodded slowly. Yes. Trust, only you. Miran felt the weight of her trust. He knew he could not betray it. Together, they sat at the edge of the glowing platform, their faces lit by the blue light of the ancient machines. Miran whispered, I promise we will protect this. Your people will not be forgotten. Nara's frail hand rested on his arm. Good boy. Strong heart. Future, safe. For the first time since meeting her, Miran saw peace on her face. She was no longer just the lost old alien lady everyone ignored. She was a guardian of knowledge, and he had become her ally. The hidden truth had been revealed, and it was far greater than Miran had ever imagined. The chamber inside the hill glowed with a soft blue light. The machines hummed gently as though breathing again after centuries of silence. Dust floated in the air, sparkling in the glow. Miran stood close to the central platform, his heart beating fast. Beside him, Nara held her pendant high, her thin hands steady. This place, lives again, she whispered. Her silver eyes reflected the light, full of wonder and memory. Miran turned slowly, looking at the rows of crystal pillars and the strange machines. The glow grew brighter, spreading across the walls. Lines of light formed patterns like rivers of energy. The chamber felt alive. What are they doing? Miran asked. Nara touched one of the glowing lines on the wall. Waking, remembering. Miran's mind raced. If the machines truly held knowledge, then this could change everything. He thought of the colony, of the people outside who went about their lives not knowing what lay hidden here. They believed humans were the first true settlers of this land, but now he knew they were only part of a larger story. The platform at the center shifted. Symbols rose like glowing carvings. Nara stepped onto it carefully. She placed her pendant into a small slot, and the whole room trembled. A beam of light shot upward, spreading into the air above them. Miran gasped as the light shaped itself into a giant star map. Countless points of light formed stars, connected by lines like paths. Whole clusters of galaxies appeared, swirling in patterns. Some stars blinked with symbols, showing names or records. It is a map, Miran breathed. Nara nodded slowly. Yes. Map of sky. Map of journey. My people, traveled far. Learned much. Miran stepped closer, staring at the glowing stars. This is more knowledge than our colony has ever seen. Nara's face grew solemn. But knowledge, dangerous if greedy hands take it. Must be guided. Must be safe. Miran understood her fear. If the colony leaders discovered this, many would want the power for themselves. Some would see only weapons or riches instead of wisdom. He clenched his fists. Then we must protect it? Before Nara could answer, a sound echoed down the passage behind them. Footsteps. Voices. Miran turned sharply, his heart sinking. A group of colony leaders and guards entered the chamber, their lanterns casting harsh light. At the front was Rallan, one of the council heads, a tall man with sharp eyes. He stopped at the sight of the glowing star map, his mouth falling open in awe. What is this? Rallan demanded. His gaze fell on Miran. Boy, what have you done? Miran stepped forward, blocking Nara from view. We found it. These are her people's ruins. This belongs to her. Rallan ignored his words and moved closer, staring at the star map. His eyes gleamed with ambition. This could hold technology beyond imagination. Machines, energy, maps to other systems. We must take control of this immediately. Nara's eyes narrowed. She clutched her staff, her voice firm despite her frailty. Not yours. Not for greed. For wisdom. The guards muttered among themselves. Some looked uneasy, but others gripped their weapons tightly. Miran raised his voice. She trusted me. This is not just treasure. It is history. If you destroy it for power, you will lose everything it can teach us. Rallan's expression hardened. You are just a boy. You do not understand the value of what lies here. I understand more than you, Miran shot back. I understand that it must be respected. Nara stepped beside him. Her pendant glowed brighter, and the symbols on the platform pulsed. The machines hummed louder, responding to her presence. She spoke slowly, her voice carrying through the chamber. Knowledge is a gift. Not for war. Not for greed. For future. The star map shifted, showing not only stars but also images of landscapes, rivers, and cities that once belonged to her people. The chamber filled with memories of a lost civilization. The humans gasped, stunned by the vision. One young guard lowered his weapon, whispering, "This is beautiful." But Rallan's eyes narrowed. He saw power, not beauty. Take control of the machines, he ordered. The guards hesitated. Some stepped forward, but others looked uncertain. The glowing light from the machines seemed to push back at them, making the air heavy. Miran stood tall, his voice steady. Stop. She is the key. Without her, none of this will work. Do you not see? These machines respond to her, not us. Nara lifted her staff and tapped it firmly against the platform. The glow surged, filling the chamber with brilliance. The guards shielded their eyes. The machines released a low hum that shook the ground. Rallan stumbled back, his face pale. "What is happening?" Nara's voice rang clear. "Awakening. Protecting." The machine's glow softened, forming a barrier of light around the central platform. Rallan tried to push forward but was forced back. The light rejected him. Only Miran and Nara stood unharmed within the glow. Miran looked at her in awe. "You control it?" Nara shook her head gently. "Not control. Connection. I remember. My people built this with care. It knows who respects it." The star map dimmed, leaving only a soft glow across the chamber. The barrier faded, but the machines remained quiet and watchful, as if waiting for Nara's command. Rallan's face twisted with frustration. "This is not over. The council will hear of this. We will not leave such power in the hands of a child and a dying alien." He turned sharply and left with most of the guards, their footsteps echoing up the passage. A few stayed behind, staring at the glowing pillars with respect and uncertainty. Nara sank onto the platform, breathing heavily. The strain of awakening the machines had weakened her. Miran rushed to her side, steadying her. "Are you all right?" She nodded faintly. "Yes. But time is short. Must teach you." Miran's eyes widened. "Teach me." She placed the pendant in his hands. The stone was warm, alive with energy. "This, now yours too. You listened. You cared. You will guide." Miran stared at the pendant, feeling the weight of responsibility. "I do not know enough." "You will learn," Nara whispered. "Heart stronger than knowledge. Machines feel that. That is why they answered." Miran swallowed hard. He felt both fear and pride. He had promised to help her, and now the promise carried more weight than ever. He was no longer just a boy exploring with curiosity. He was now the keeper of a legacy. The few guards who had stayed behind stepped closer. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, spoke softly. "The boy is right. This is not for greed. This is for all of us. We must protect it." Miran looked at her with gratitude. At least not everyone shared Rallan's hunger for power. That night, Miran and Nara remained in the chamber. The machines glowed faintly around them, as if keeping watch. They spoke quietly. Nara told him what little she remembered of her people, their wisdom, their songs, and their respect for balance. Her words came slowly, broken at times, but Miran listened with all his heart. He wrote everything in his notebook, determined not to let it fade again. As the lantern burned low, Miran looked at the glowing pendant in his hand. He felt its warmth spread through him. He knew the path ahead would be difficult. Rallan and others like him would try to take the machines, but he would not allow it. He and Nara would protect the knowledge and share it wisely. For now, the chamber rested in quiet light, safe under their care. The awakening had come, and with it, a choice. Humanity could learn with respect, or they could destroy through greed. Miran knew which path he would follow. He would not let Nara's people be forgotten again. The days that followed the awakening were tense in the colony. News spread quickly that Miran and the old alien woman had uncovered something hidden in the hills. Some spoke with awe, whispering about glowing maps and forgotten machines. Others spoke with fear, warning that such things should not be disturbed. And some, like Rallan and his supporters, spoke with hunger in their voices, eager to seize whatever power lay inside the ruins. Through it all, Miran stayed by Nara's side. Together they visited the chamber daily, tending to the machines, studying the symbols, and learning from the faint records that glowed across the crystal pillars. The pendant guided them, opening passages and unlocking fragments of memory stored within the machines. Each time, Nara grew weaker, but each time, her eyes shone brighter, filled with peace. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the hills in gold, Miran sat on the platform writing in his notebook. His hands moved quickly as he copied symbols and drew maps from the glowing star map above. Nara rested beside him, her staff across her lap. "You write much," she said softly. Miran nodded. "I want to keep everything safe. Even if the machines go dark again, we will still have the stories." Nara smiled faintly. "Good. Stories keep life. Without them, nothing remains." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the low hum of the chamber. Miran thought of the future, of what the knowledge here could mean. If used wisely, it could guide humans to new lands, heal sickness, and build bridges with others. But if misused, it could destroy. He felt the weight of that choice press heavily on his young shoulders. The next day, the council arrived at the ruins. Rallan stood at the front, his expression sharp. Behind him marched guards and officials. A crowd from the colony followed, curious to see what would happen. "This place belongs to the colony now," Rallan declared, his voice echoing in the chamber. "It will be studied by our scholars, controlled by our leaders, and guarded by our soldiers." Miran stepped forward, his fists clenched. "It does not belong to you. It belongs to her people. She is the last of them. You cannot take it without her." Rallan sneered. "She is old and fading. Soon she will be gone. Then it will fall to us." Nara rose slowly, leaning on her staff. Though her body was weak, her voice carried strength. "Not yours. Not to be stolen. To be shared. To teach. To guide." The machines responded to her words. The star map above shifted, glowing brighter. Images of her people filled the chamber again: families, riverside cities, towers of light, songs written in symbols. The crowd gasped, awed by the beauty. One child whispered, "It is like a dream." But Rallan's eyes narrowed. "Do not be fooled. This is power, nothing more. And it will be ours." He raised his hand, signaling the guards. Before they could step forward, the pendant around Nara's neck glowed fiercely. The light spread across the chamber, forming a wall between the machines and the intruders. The guards stumbled back, shielding their eyes. Miran stood beside Nara, his voice ringing clear. "Do you not see? The machines know. They will not answer to greed. They will only answer to respect." The council members murmured among themselves. Some looked uncertain now, shaken by the glowing barrier. A few nodded slowly, understanding that Miran spoke the truth. One elder councilwoman raised her hand. "Perhaps the boy is right. We must not rush. This place may be more than we can control." Rallan glared at her but said nothing. His plan was slipping through his fingers. That night, the crowd returned to the colony, divided in thought. Some feared the machines, others admired them, but many began to speak of Miran with respect. The boy who had once been ignored was now seen as a voice of wisdom. Inside the chamber, Nara sank down onto the platform, breathing heavily. Miran knelt beside her, worry on his face. "You are too tired. Rest, please. She touched his hand gently. Time is short. I feel it. Soon I must leave. But you will stay. You will carry. Tears stung Miran's eyes, but he shook his head. I am not ready. You are, Nara whispered. You have heart. Machines know it. People will know it too. You must guide them. Promise. Miran swallowed hard and nodded. I promise. Nara smiled, closing her eyes for a moment. The glow of the pendant softened, pulsing gently like a heartbeat. In the days that followed, Nara spoke less, but when she did, her words carried deep meaning. She told Miran the last fragments of her people's history, stories of creation, of peace, of the mistakes that led to their fall. Miran wrote everything in his notebook, filling page after page. Then, one quiet evening, as the chamber glowed softly around them, Nara placed the pendant in Miran's hands. It is yours now. Guard it. Use it wisely. Share when time is right. Miran's eyes blurred with tears. I will. I swear. Nara's hand lingered on his. Her lips curved in the faintest smile. Then she closed her eyes and grew still. Her breathing slowed, and with one last soft sigh, she rested forever. The machines hummed gently, their glow wrapping around her like a farewell. The star map above dimmed, leaving only a soft star shining where she sat. Miran bowed his head, tears falling freely. She was gone, but her legacy remained. Miran carried her back to the colony with the help of the kind guard who had supported him before. Together they laid her to rest under a tree near the river, where the hills met the water she had loved. People gathered quietly, some bowing their heads, others weeping softly. For the first time, the colony honored her not as a stranger but as a teacher. From that day forward, the ruins were no longer ignored or hidden. They became a place of learning. Scholars came not to seize but to study with care. Children visited to hear stories of the past. The machines glowed gently, guiding those who respected them. Miran became known as the keeper of the pendant. Though still young, he spoke with wisdom beyond his years. He reminded the people often of Nara's words, knowledge is a gift, not a weapon. He shared her stories, her lessons, and her warnings. The colony grew stronger, not by greed, but by understanding. Years passed. The tree by the river grew tall, its branches stretching wide. Beneath it lay Nara's resting place, marked by a simple stone carved with both human letters and her people's symbols. Travelers came from other colonies to see it, to hear Miran speak, and to walk the glowing halls of the ruins. Miran never forgot the first day he saw her standing alone in the market. Everyone had turned away, but he had stopped. That simple act of kindness had changed everything. It had saved not only her story but the future of his people. One evening, as the sun set behind the hills, Miran stood on the platform in the chamber. The pendant rested against his chest, glowing softly. He looked at the star map above, at the endless stars waiting beyond. He whispered into the quiet, I will keep the promise, Nara. Your people will never be forgotten. And the machines hummed in gentle reply, as if they too remembered.